Hello everybody and welcome back to the next episode in the series of where we let the spinner wheel pick which true crime case we are covering. And without further ado, let's get to it. We have 9 on here. Last time we did the missing case of Brandon Swanson, so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. We have a playlist on the channel now, so we're going to be adding to it all the time. And we're going to see what the wheel picks for us today. Okay. The Yuba County 5. Today we are going to be talking about the Yuba County 5. Have you ever heard of this? This is kind of wild.
I don't think so.
I was researching this and this is wild. This takes place on February 24th, 1978. A group of 5 boys drove 50 miles from their home to California State University at Chico to watch a basketball game. After the game, they went to a gas station and got snacks for the ride home. That was the last time they were ever seen. Pardon me if I do not pronounce these names right. I'm trying my best. Imogen Weir woke up at 5 a.m. around that time on February 25th. In her gut, she knew that something was not right. And you know when you just wake up and you feel like something's not right and you're anxious and you don't know why. She had gone to bed the night before with her son Ted not home yet. It was about an hour drive from their home and she had expected him to come home around 11 or midnight at the latest. To ease her anxiety, she goes to her son Ted's room to make sure that he is in fact at home in bed sleeping, like he should be. When she gets to his room, she sees that the bed is empty. And she realizes that Ted never came home. She calls Bill's mother since Bill also went to the basketball game with Ted. Bill's mother tells Imogen that Bill hadn't come home either and that she had been up since 2 a.m. worried sick. Bill's mother had already called Jack's mother and she also said there was no sign of Jack at home. Imogen then calls Jackie's mother and she says the same thing. Jackie never came home. Imogen then sends her daughter-in-law down the street to the stepfather of the last boy, Gary. Gary never came home either. So on February 25th, all 5 boys are missing.
The sun had come up and Imogen was still freaking out. This was extremely unlike her son, and it was unlike all of the boys to not return home. Today was the day of a big basketball tournament for them that was being hosted by the Special Olympics. They had all excitedly laid their clothes out the night before and had been talking about it for days upon days. The boys wouldn't miss this game for anything. The boys' lives were very based around routine and predictability.
Now, to talk about the boys for a minute, because we're saying boys, and it might sound like these are children. They were known as the boys to everyone, but in reality, they were fully grown men. The youngest was 24, and the oldest was 32, but they were still referred to as the boys. And all 5 of these boys had some form of intellectual disability and lived at home with their parents, but they were still high functioning enough to do things independently, like take short trips, like the one that they were on that night. They were all enrolled in a day program at the Yuba City Vocational Rehabilitation Center, which had a basketball team that they were all part of. Now I'm going to run through the 5 boys and a little bit about them. Ted Weir is 32 years old. He was a gentle giant. He was very routine oriented. He had a mild intellectual disability and loved to make new friends. Then there's Jack Madruga. He was 30. He had an undiagnosed mild learning disability, had a driver's license, and owned a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego that he absolutely cherished. He was also a veteran, spending 2 years in the Army. Then there's Jackie Hewitt, who is 24. He was diagnosed with a mild learning disability. He was the most severely disabled of the 5. He spent most of his childhood in the Napa State Hospital. Back then it was called the Napa State Insane Asylum. And he couldn't read or write and couldn't dial a telephone. But him and Ted were the closest, and they were inseparable. He was very shy, and he didn't like being away from home for long periods of time, especially overnight. And then there's William Bill Sterling, who was 29. He was close with Jack Madruga and deeply religious. That night he went to the game with 4 different maps of the area, and he worked as a dishwasher, but his mom made him quit when she found out people were getting him drunk and stealing his money. And the last boy was Gary Mathias, and he was 25. He worked for his father's gardening business. He was also in the army, but was medically discharged from a psychiatric issue, being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and he took daily medication, and he had been stable for the last 2 years.
All of Saturday goes by and no parents hear from any of the boys. At 8 p.m., the parents went to the police. Immediately, the Yuba County Sheriff's Department puts out an alert for the public to help them locate the boys. Jack Madruga's Mercury is what the boys went in that night, so the police posted a picture of it along with the license plate. A county-wide search began, and the police were able to confirm that they had gone to the game. Just before 10 p.m., the boys stopped at a convenience store, and they stocked up on candy and snacks for the ride back home. They were seen heading in the direction of Yuba City. A woman had called the police and said she had seen the boys on Saturday or Sunday. She said when she saw them, they were in a red pickup truck. 2 came in to buy food in her store, and another went to the phone booth to make a call, and the other 2 stayed in the truck. The issue is that the store the woman runs is way up north, nowhere near the route the boys would have taken home. The police ruled the signing out as not being them because it was so far out of their way.
Now the police get a call from this guy named Joe.
What you got, Joe?
And he tells them that he believes that he saw the guys they were looking for. He says his full name is Joseph Shawns, and he says he was driving on the same remote road into the forest that night to check on his cabin when he got stuck in a snowbank. Joe said he tried getting his vehicle out, but he ended up having a heart attack, and he wasn't able to move.
Good Lord.
He gets back into his car and he leaves it running. Around 11:30 p.m., after sitting in his car for a few hours, he started to hear a whistling sound. So he gets out of his car, looks down the road about 150 feet, and he sees headlights. He tells police he saw several men with a woman who was holding a baby. They were all standing outside of the car, and he could see them in the headlights. He called out to them, and when he did, the headlights turned off. They stopped talking, so they weren't gonna come help him. And 2 hours later, he ends up seeing flashlight beams close to where the car was, but none of them came to help him.
The police listen to Joe's story, and they are extremely skeptical of it, which I can see why.
Because, are you really gonna... Well, the thing is, this guy's trying to get his truck out in a snowbank, and then he starts having a heart attack. How do you know he had a heart attack? How do you know? Like...
His story just didn't seem logical to them. Joe tells them that hours later, when his car finally ran out of gas, he decided to walk back down the mountain for help. Along the way, in the area where he had been hearing the voices, he sees a car stuck in the snow. He says the car was the turquoise and white Mercury Montego that the boys had gone to the game in. A little while later, the police are contacted by a U.S. Forest Service worker telling them they think they found the car, and it's way up in the Plumas National Forest. The forest ranger who found the car found it on the road that goes right up into the Sierra Nevada mountains, which is 50 miles in the opposite direction than the route they should have taken.
Which is insane. And so it looks like Joe's story has some truth to it.
Also, why was there a lady with a baby?
Exactly. Like, where did she come from? Police realize that Joe is, in fact, telling the truth at this point. They go to the car and they notice that the keys are missing and a window is rolled down. Investigators immediately start searching the forest for any possible signs. It is noticed that the car was truly stuck in the snow, but not in a ditch or a snowbank. These are 5 grown men. They are all either close to 6 feet or over 6 feet tall. So getting a car stuck out of the snow wouldn't have been that difficult for them to push it out and free it, because there's 5 of them. So they should have been able to complete that task fairly easily.
Because it was in the road. They didn't like go off in the ditch or go off in a snowbank. Like they just like tire spinning.
Police notice that there is a 1/4 tank of gas left in the car. So the issue is not that they ran out of gas. They hotwire the car and it immediately starts up, which rules out any type of engine problems. So no engine problems, didn't run out of gas. They could have pushed it out. Why were they there in the first place? It is believed that the boys had ended up taking a wrong turn somewhere and got lost. But then the police find the 4 maps in the glove box. And when they look at the maps, which were neatly folded, they realize that one of the maps is actually of the area that they were in. And police and investigators are now thoroughly confused by this. So did they come here intentionally? Or did they know that they were going to end up here? One of the theories is that they were intentionally coming here and had a map of the area for that reason. But the question is why? Jack's parents, who was the guy driving the car, told the police that he didn't know that area at all. And he didn't like being out in the cold, so this isn't something he would be willing to do. Police don't see any signs of foul play, but they also don't see any signs of where they might have gone.
Because in the snow, if it keeps snowing, your tracks are covered up.
Or if it's windy and it blows over, if it's like a fluffy snow.
The police call in the local Forest Service, who knew the area best. The areas of terrain are rough, and some are only accessible by horse, which is crazy. Helicopters came in to search from above, and search dogs were brought in. ATVs were also used. So they're just all the stops. They're breaking them out. They're trying to find them.
Really trying.
After searching for 5 days, a winter storm comes in, bringing 9 more inches of snow. That's a lot of inches. If you don't get snow, 9 is a ridiculous amount of inches.
Yeah.
So the search had to be paused. The storm erases all the tracks that might have been clues. After 10 days, the police know that the boys couldn't have survived the winter storm and all of the snow, especially with how they were dressed that night. But if they were deceased, they would have been found somewhere by now. Just to put in perspective, if you don't get snow, 9 inches, not quite a foot, still a lot of snow, but snow drifts in the wind. So you will have piles of snow that are, 3 times, 4 times the height of how many inches you get.
This is 9 inches right here.
That's a lot of snow.
That's a lot.
And it moves. It drifts up.
It blows with the wind. Especially if it's not a wet, packy snow.
So you might have some places that are like a little bit of snow, and then you'll have places that like it accumulated. They started thinking that foul play was involved. One theory is that the boys came across somebody on the side of the road needing help, and when they tried to help, they were taken advantage of. Their parents say when they are in stressful situations, it causes their decision-making skills to deteriorate.
As an autism over here, I am that way too.
And also, if somebody would have come along and said, hey, we can figure the situation out for you, they might have all just gone, okay, and just followed whatever the person that was telling them to do. They would just do it because they're just shut down and they're like, I don't know what to do, I'm panicking.
Calls come in from all over America at this point of people saying that they see the boys, but every lead went cold. The closest thing that they could find to a lead is that Gary had friends in Forbestown, which is about halfway between Chico and Yuba City. The road to there is easily missed, and if you miss it, it can take you heading up towards the mountains, which is where the boys were found. These friends get tracked down by police, and they say, "We haven't talked to Gary in over a year. We had no plans to see him. We knew nothing about his trip, so he wasn't coming to see us."
As the weeks go by, police are starting to get desperate. They visit psychics and a water witcher. This water witcher said he tuned his instrument to find human remains. He leads authorities to an empty cabin close to where the car was found. They find a gray cigarette lighter, but none of the boys carried a lighter on them. Nothing really came of it.
And that's like the first time I've ever heard of the police going to psychics and a water witcher.
The water witcher said,
When I heard this, I was like, interesting. Like, they must have been pretty freaking desperate for
they said
anything.
Anybody got anything at all.
By the time spring rolls around, the police and investigators have spent more than 6,000 hours searching for the boys. The snow finally starts to melt, and on Sunday, June 4th, 1978, the police get a call from a man. He was part of a motorcycle group, and they were out exploring the trails of the Plumas National Forest. They came across a Forest Service trailer in the woods with one of the windows broken. It was 20 miles from where the car was found.
That's a lot of miles.
The bikers were pretty curious about this, and so they went up to the cabin and they opened the door. They instantly were hit with a smell of decay, and they called the police instantly.
The smell was coming from the emaciated body of Ted. He was neatly wrapped up in the sheets on the bed inside the trailer. His beard length suggested he was alive for 2 to 3 months before he died. His pants were rolled up above his knees and his legs had gangrene, and he was missing 5 toes from frostbite. Ted's official cause of death was exposure. He froze and starved to death. This is odd though, because there was a locker inside the trailer filled with enough food to feed all of the men for a year, for more than a year. There was also a shed nearby with matches, fuel, and a propane tank, and all of them were untouched. Gary's shoes were found inside the cabin, but none of the other boys were. Ted's shoes were missing, and Ted's ring, necklace, and wallet was on the bedside table, along with a gold watch that didn't belong to any of them. You're better.
2 days later, police find the bodies of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga in the woods. They were found several miles away from the trailer where Ted was. Police believe that they died before they had even reached the trailer. Their bodies had been eaten by animals and were mostly bones at this point. Jack's body was found in a stream, and the keys to the Montego were found in his pocket. On the other side of the road is where they found Bill's remains that were nothing but scattered bones. Jack's cause of death was hypothermia and exposure. Bill's remains were so badly decomposed that there was no sign to tell how he died, but it is assumed that the same had happened.
Jackie and Gary are the only 2 that haven't been found yet. Jackie's dad decides that he's going to join the search. Investigators are apprehensive about this because he might find something traumatizing, but he does not care, which, you know, as a parent. He is searching along the service road that leads to the trailer and he spots something. He finds some of Jackie's clothes, his jacket, his jeans, and his shoes. He ran over to the pile of clothes and picked them up. When he does, a spine falls out. That's wacko crazy, terrible
Traumatizing
trauma. The next day, the police find his skull about 100 yards away. He was found between the cabin and the location of Jack and Bill's bodies. About a quarter mile away from the cabin, a search team finds 3 wool Forest Service blankets and a flashlight. They don't know if this is related to the boys or not. It could be pointing in the direction of where Gary went.
Now, Gary is the last one missing. Police believe he has to be close because all 4 of the other boys, they were found relatively close. Ted in the service trailer and then the 3 boys found in the woods. But they don't find Gary anywhere. You know, they would think that if he's deceased, he would be somewhere around there. For weeks they search the grounds and they find nothing. And they even call psychiatric facilities in the area to see if Gary had shown up there. Because remember, Gary has schizophrenia. And he needs his medication or else he could start having episodes. And so police think that since he didn't take any of his medicine to the game, that if he was still out there alive, he would need it. And maybe he would show up to one of these facilities and get his medicine to keep him stable. But all of the facilities that they called said that Gary had not come in. They had not given that prescription to anybody that looked like him or was him. And so nothing turns up. And on June 19th, the search for Gary is stopped.
To this day, Gary is still missing.
And this was in 1978, if I'm correct.
Gary is the only one in the group to not have an intellectual disability, but he had a mental illness. The parents had major concerns about Gary from the beginning. Even though Gary's behavior had been managed by medication for the last 2 years, he did have a history of violent behavior. His first visit with the psychiatric ward happened when he was in high school. His parents told investigators that he had a bad trip. In the army, he was using drugs in Germany and getting into a lot of trouble. Once out of the army, he still continued to use drugs regularly. He wouldn't take his medication and he would end up going into a psychosis. He also had a police record. He was charged twice with assault. He broke into a home and the couple found him standing in their bedroom looking for a ring to return to Satan. While he was in the psychiatric hospital, he ended up escaping 3 times. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Was Gary the one who forced them up the mountain? Was he finding himself in the beginning of a psychosis episode that night and led his friends up the mountain on accident? His friends didn't have the mental capacity to know that Gary was going into an episode and couldn't help him. There's no evidence that Gary did or didn't survive though. Most believe that Gary died in the woods along with his friends. And as we said earlier, if they were all panicking, they're probably just going to follow whoever decides to, like, take the lead.
And since Gary didn't have a learning disability, but he had a mental illness, he was probably the one who was leading this, if that was the case. Like I said, this is just a theory. No one knows for sure, but it is interesting to involve, like, Gary's past and what the parents kind of thought about him, and it just leads into all of these unanswered questions of, could this have possibly happened? Could this have possibly happened? Like, what are the probabilities of each scenario playing out? And with that comes so many theories. And another theory is that the police believe that someone or something led the boys up the mountain that night. Like, it might not have been Gary, but who else? Ted's sister-in-law thought maybe they saw something at that basketball game in Chico. Maybe something that they should not have seen, or something that was bad, but they just didn't know that it was bad, and it wasn't registering in their brains, and this person saw that they had noticed and chased them up the mountain and tried to do something to them. Jack's mother thought somebody else was involved as well, but thought it was a third party, and she ended up saying, "We know good and well somebody made them do it." And police could never prove that it was somebody that followed them up the mountain. They couldn't prove that it was another vehicle. They really couldn't prove anything.
They wondered if the gray lighter and the gold watch were from the person who caused this. Possibly holding them hostage in the trailer, they also could have belonged to a forest worker or a hiker. For years, they haven't been able to prove or disprove, and to this day, there are still more questions than answered, and some questions may not ever be answered. Especially this far into how long ago it happened.
Like, what was it, 1978? Yes. So that's so long, and it is so sad to say that at this point there might not ever be answers. I hope you guys enjoyed that case of the Yuba County 5, and join us next time to see what the wheel picks for us again. And like I said, that if you have not seen the first one that the wheel picked for us, go check it out, because it is also a missing persons case. We had 2 missing cases in a row, and we appreciate you guys loving this new series so much, and we love it too, and we can't wait to see you guys again. Bye!